All right, guys, welcome back to the new video here. So we have an absolute wild one. Honestly, we got a Republican civil war breaking out. You have people in the right wing really, and I mean really going after Tucker Carlson, calling him an anti-Semite, the worst in America. I mean, let's be honest, the pitchforks are out for him after his interview with Nick Fuentes, where he platformed him. And let's just say the Ben Shapiros of the world, the Ted Cruz's of the world, the Randy Fines of the world, the Republican apparatus and establishment are not happy about it, and they're really going after Tucker. And we're going to show you Ben Shapiro absolutely, going in on Tucker Carlson here for this. And again, I have a lot of nuanced opinions about this. I don't think it's super simple, and I don't really agree with either of them, either of the sides. But again, it's interesting. I think both sides are somewhat correct in a way, some are somewhat not correct, and we're going to talk about that. So we're going to show you the clips of Ben Shapiro going in, showing a number of clips of Tucker in the past. Really, some of his interviews he's done with Putin, for example, going after him on that, and frankly, rightfully so. Some of those interviews were a little sketchy, to say the least, which we'll talk about. And again, this all stems from his interview he did with Nick Fuentes, which, let's be honest, it was a softball interview. There's no question about it. And the criticism from the more establishment wing of the party, more pro-Israel wing of the party, is basically, well, you're basically sanitizing this anti-Semitic discourse, and let's be honest, Nick Fuentes is becoming mainstream in the Republican Party now. There's no question about it. And here's the problem. I think a lot of the argument, and we're going to show you the clips, a lot of the arguments being made by people like Ben Shapiro, which we're going to show you here, a lot of it is correct in the sense where Tucker, he's always all over the place with the principles. He did not really push back against Nick Fuentes. But at the same time, guys, when you basically call all criticism of Israel in your party and you don't allow it in your party, it leads to more radical people like Nick Fuentes rising up. That's what happens when you call all criticism of Israel anti-Semitic and you don't allow for any sort of speech. Again, you have Lindsey Graham literally saying at the Republican Jewish Coalition, this is where a lot of the attacks were going against Tucker Carlson here, basically saying, if you're anti-Israel, if you have any negative thoughts about Israel, the Republican Party is not the place for you. This is Lindsey Graham, again, Trump endorsed, he's golfing with him all the time. This is what Trump is thinking too, guys. Let's make no mistake about it. Trump is with the more establishment wing of the party here. There's no question about this, okay? When you have Lindsey Graham saying that, what do you think that's going to result in? Because there's a lot of anti-Israel sentiment right now, and frankly, there's a lot of reasons for that. It's not just that you're anti-Semitic, which is, of course, what the Mark Levins of the world, the Randy Fines of the world are saying. Randy Fine, again, total lunatic. This guy called for nuking the Gaza Strip, okay? That is how insane this person is. He's calling Tucker Carlson hateful. How do you expect people to actually listen to what you say when you call for nuking a civilian area with millions of people inside? It's totally insane. It's totally insane. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think a lot of the arguments that Shapiro made and a lot of these people are making are necessarily wrong. But it falls on deaf ears when it's coming from Randy Fine, of all people, and Mark Levin, for God's sake. So let's just show you the first clip, and we'll talk about it in just a second. I have more to say about it. And by the way, guys, we're getting great growth recently. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to like and subscribe. It's super good for the algorithm, and it helps out the channel immensely. If you want to become a member, hit the join button below. Patreon link is below as well. And you want to give a super thanks, you can do that too. Thanks for watching. Here's the first clip, and we'll talk about it in just a second.
They think it's trash. Republicans, by the polling, think it's trash. Independents think it's trash. Democrats think it's trash. And here's the other thing. Americans hate Tucker Carlson's laundered anti-Americanism. Republicans think it's trash. Independents think it's trash. Democrats think it's trash. Americans are not pro-segregation, pro-rape, anti-woman, pro-child marriage, anti-black, anti-Jew, anti-Indian, anti-Latino, anti-Constitution, pro-Hitler nutjobs like Nick Fuentes. And Americans are not pro-Putin, pro-Iran, pro-China, pro-Venezuela, pro-Hamas, pro-Fuentes, pro-Tate idiots like Tucker Carlson. They hate this vile garbage. If Republicans decide to cower before the likes of neo-Nazis and their propagandizers, they deserve to lose. And they will lose. Neo-Nazis and their propagandizers are not Republicans. They are not America First. They are not MAGA. They sure as hell aren't conservative. These people aren't to my right. They are not attached in any way to the fundamental principles of conservatism. And these people have already declared themselves to be my enemies. I'd be a fool not to take them seriously. If they get their way, they will hollow out the Republican Party, lead it to electoral catastrophe, and empty it and the country of any semblance of decency in the process. My answer is no. No to the Groypers. No to their publicists like Tucker Carlson. No to those who champion them. No to demoralization. No to bigotry and anti-meritocratic horse shit. No to anti-Americanism. No. This is our country. This is our party. And this is our conservative movement.
Okay, so again, pretty scathing there from Shapiro. And again, here's the thing. I don't think he's necessarily wrong when he's talking about how most people are not on this like pro-Hitler nut job thing. Okay, we get that part. You're not with that. Understood. But here's the thing that he's not talking about. One of the reasons why people like Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson have been getting more traction recently, specifically Nick Fuentes, but again, it's because people like Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, they basically, let's be honest, if there's any criticism of Israel whatsoever, especially when the United States government is funding what is going on, people have a right to speak out against that. And when you smear people as anti-Semitic for just criticizing what Israel is doing and their influence in U.S. politics, what do you think that's going to result in, okay? It's going to result in people basically trending towards the more radical side. So again, they created this. The Ben Shapiro's, the Mark Levin of the world, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, the Randy Fines of the world, they created this environment, okay? That's the thing that I don't think people are really grasping here. It's their creation. It's the Ben Shapiro and the neocons world creation of basically this more radical wing of the Republican Party. And yeah, he's right. It might be an electoral disaster, but why will it be an electoral disaster? Because I think the Republican Party is fracturing. I think Trump put a Band-Aid on it, but I think at this point, it's pretty clear it's not going to hold. And I think you saw that. You're seeing it now. You have a full-blown Republican civil war. People are really going after Tucker Carlson now. So it is absolutely wild stuff. And again, he goes even more in on Tucker Carlson here. We're going to show you some of his clips. We're going to talk about some of the criticism. Is Shapiro correct in some of the stuff he's saying? So again, it's very nuanced. I'm very mixed about how I feel about this. Let me know what you think in the comments. So here's the second clip of Ben Shapiro going in on Tucker Carlson, talking about some of his interviews he's done with foreign countries, and I'll give my take afterward. Here's a clip, and we'll talk about it in show.
He has even become one of his most... Tucker excuses Vladimir Putin's murderous and barbarous reign. He has even become one of his most ardent defenders.
It is so much nicer than any city in my country. I had no idea. My father spent a lot of time there in the 80s when he worked for the U.S. government and barely had electricity. And now it is so much cleaner and safer and prettier aesthetically. Its architecture, its food, its service than any country, city in the United States that you have to, and this is non-ideological. How did that happen? How did that happen? And at a certain point, I don't think the average person cares as much about abstractions as about the concrete reality of his life. And if you can't use your subway, for example, as many people are afraid to in New York City because it's too dangerous, you have to sort of wonder, like, isn't that the ultimate measure of leadership? And that's true, by the way, it's radicalizing for an American to go to Moscow, I didn't know that, I've learned it this week, to Singapore, to Tokyo, to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Because these cities, no matter how we're told they're run and on what principles they're run, are wonderful places to live.
So I guess you put in 10 rubles here and you get it back when you put the cart back. So it's free, but there's an incentive to return it and not just bring it to your homeless encampment. I went from amused to legitimately angry. So we were guessing what this would cost. Everybody hears from the United States buys groceries, and we didn't pay any attention to costs as we were just putting in the cart what we would actually eat over a week. And we all came in around $400, about $400. It was $104 US here. And that's when you start to realize that ideology maybe doesn't matter as much as you thought, corruption. If you take people's standard of living and you tank it through filth and crime and inflation, and they literally can't buy the groceries they want, at that point, maybe it matters less what you say or whether you're a good person or a bad person. You're wrecking people's lives in their country, and that's what our leaders have done to us.
When Tucker Carlson interviewed Vladimir Putin, by the way, Vladimir Putin was so amused by Tucker Carlson's easy questioning that he actually mocked him. Tucker Carlson has massaged the Iranian dictatorship and admitted to not asking any difficult questions of the president of that dictatorship.
The interview is limited by a couple of factors. One, it was done by remote through a translator. That's always awkward. For another, I don't speak Persian. And there are all kinds of questions that I didn't ask the president of Iran, particularly questions to which I knew I could not get an honest answer, such as, was your nuclear program totally disabled by the bombing campaign by the U.S. government a week and a half ago? There's no chance he's going to answer that question honestly.
Okay, so again, he goes in basically criticizing his interview with Russian President Putin. And again, I think it's pretty warranted. I mean, that interview was relatively soft interview. There's no question about it. But again, he asked some good questions, much of which were very soft. And again, there's a reason why Vladimir Putin did an interview with Tucker Carlson. Okay, let's just be honest about that. Now, again, that is interesting. And you can criticize the interview. I think the more surrounding aspects of it is really what makes it a little strange. I mean, he's in Moscow saying it was radicalizing going to Moscow. And then, of course, a grocery store fiasco when he was basically salivating over how nice a grocery store was and how cheap it was, even though not understanding how inflation works, it seems. And again, the idea that the average Russian citizen is doing better than the average American citizen right now, that's just not true, okay? And you can be very critical of the American government and the American state, but there is no way the average Russian citizen is doing better off right now than the average American citizen. It's just not true. And again, of course, he criticized the Tucker Iranian interview with the Iranian president, but again, I think that is less, it's very nuanced. He does the interview with the Iranian president right after the 12-day war, where he's asking him a number of questions about the conditions that led to the war. Are you preparing for more strikes? So again, of course, Ben Shapiro is not going to like that. But again, I thought that interview was not that bad. And it was only a 20 or so minute interview. And he's trying to get his initial reaction to the 12-day war, one of the first American interviews with the Iranian president. So I don't think that was that bad. And then, of course, he brings up the Qatar, him interviewing the Qatari prime minister. And again, Tucker is not asking the really hard-hitting questions. It is true he's more, calls Zelensky a dictator, which meanwhile doesn't seem like he has any sort of bad things to say about Putin, which again, it is interesting that you're seeing this play out. And you do see where Tucker seems to be allying in many cases with enemies of the United States. Again, why is that? I don't know. But again, just because he's critical of Israel, for example, does not mean he hates America, which that is the key thing, guys. I think for a lot of people like Ben Shapiro, Lindsey Graham, and the Republican establishment, they're super angry that people like Tucker are going against Israel. I think it's very obvious. Again, calling Tucker Carlson, you can criticize some of the things he says. Randy Fine calling him the most dangerous anti-Semite in America, that is deep stuff. I mean, that really is crazy to say. And again, of course, and we're going to show you the second clip. It gets even crazier where he brings up the Maduro thing. Again, Tucker Carlson is against going to war with Venezuela, as are most Americans, you would hope. But and then Ben Shapiro just says, it's, they're bringing fentanyl in, and Tucker apparently doesn't want that. That's not what he was saying, Ben, okay? It's just dishonest. You see the dishonesty here from Shapiro when he's trying to make his point. So here's a second clip, and we'll talk about it in just a second.
From an American perspective, even from the CIA's perspective, is unknowable.
Tucker bizarrely worships at the altar of Qatar.
They're mad at you because you don't put your parents in some institution. Maybe they're trying to break up your families.
Well, it can be a reason. Honestly, I don't know what is really the purpose behind this, but we see that a lot of things that are happening are attacks on humanity in general. It's when you lose the family value, when you lose the connection between the family themselves, you will lose the connection between the people as well, on a broader level, on the people in the same neighborhood, on the people in the same region, in the same countries. And that's basically will just make us, as individuals who are, quote unquote, independent from anyone, that's what we will feel. Yet it will just make our societies vulnerable and easy to be penetrated.
That's right.
Tucker Carlson praises Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro, even as Maduro keeps the entire country in communist penury and ships fentanyl into the United States to kill Americans by the hundreds of thousands.
Why are we so opposed to Nicolas Maduro? So if you ask someone on the street, random person, why are we against Nicolas Maduro? The answer you're going to get is, who's Nicolas Maduro? But if you find someone in South Florida, for example, who knows who Nicolas Maduro is, who can identify where Venezuela is on a map, that person will almost certainly say, well, because he's a communist or a socialist, he's exceedingly left-wing. And that is true. Nicolas Maduro and his government are very left-wing on economics. Not on social policy, by the way, which is kind of interesting. In Venezuela, gay marriage is banned, abortion is banned, sex changes for transgenderism are banned. It's one of the very few countries in the entire hemisphere with those policies. It is on social policy, not defending the regime, just saying, one of the most conservative countries in North or South or Central America. Only El Salvador really comes close.
Tucker Carlson glosses Hamas, the genocidal jihadi group behind October 7th, as a political organization.
You can't claim that they're in Hamas while simultaneously claiming that Hamas is a group of jihadis. They're Islamic extremists, which they also claim constantly, which I don't know if that's true, by the way. It seems more like a political organization, but whatever it is, they're telling us constantly.
Okay, and that's just super dishonest from Shapiro there. Again, basically saying that, Tucker actually supports the Venezuelan regime. That's not what he was saying. And again, some of what he was saying there is, why is he talking about the social policy in Venezuela? Who cares about that? I mean, that doesn't, because they're socially conservative, why does that matter? But okay, fine. And yeah, the reason why we're against Venezuela is because we want the oil. I said this in my last video, you could check that out. That's obviously why. It's the argument that Shapiro's making, because Tucker is against the administration stopping fentanyl coming in to the United States. Even though, as we know, fentanyl isn't coming in from Venezuela at all. It's just completely made up and a lie from the government because, again, they want the oil in Venezuela. But, of course, Shapiro says, no, that means he hates America. That's why he's saying that, even though it's not the truth. Nobody should support going to war with Venezuela for that. It's ridiculous, okay? And, again, you don't have to agree with Tucker Carlson. And, again, I do think some of his interviews he's done with a lot of these dictators across the world, it is worthy of criticism. But I do think a lot of this stems from the fact that he's critical of Israel, and that is a major, major no-no in the Republican establishment, to the Ben Shapiros of the world, to the Lindsey Grahams of the world, to the Mark Levins of the world. And that is why you're seeing this splintering in the Republican Party. And I'm not sure how it's resolved. And who wins in the end, I really don't know. But I will say the president is, without question, Trump is in the pro-Israel wing of the party. There is no question about that. Nobody should be fooled and under that delusion. I don't think people are, but again, it is the one thing sort of holding this together, and it's really not even being held. So it's going to be super interesting to see how this all plays out. But overall, I mean, you got a Republican civil war. There's no question about it. So again, I'm trying to be very fair and objective here. You can agree with me, disagree with my take. Let me know in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all your support. Again, make sure to like and subscribe. It's super good for the algorithm, and it helps out the channel immensely. And if you want to become a member, hit that join button below. That's what I got for you guys today. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you later.